Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our recaps of my state chess tournament. So this is round three, going into it with a 1-2 score. My opponent also came into it with a 1-2 score, and initially seeing this, I'm like, okay, well, I just got my butt kicked by a 1900. Didn't have super high hopes for this game, um, but I went in and I'm like, I'm gonna give him a fight. I'm not gonna make it easy, and yeah. So no spoilers. Guess you'll just have to watch, see what happens. So my opponent started the game off with d4, played knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6. The king's Indian. The idea of it is to basically control the center and then strike back at it. So I say, you take the center, I'm gonna counterattack it. He goes f3. So this is my first time facing overboard, but I've studied it extensively. It's a main line, but not really a main line to the King's Indian. The point's very straightforward. It looks kind of ridiculous, but he wants to put his bishop here, and he doesn't want my knight going to attack it. So I castle, because got to get my king to safety. We're blitzing out all these moves. There we go. Bishop e3, e5. Obviously, takes. Trade queens, and I would be quite happy there, because all of his kingside pieces are kind of mediocre. So he pushes, and I was like, okay, well, I wasn't expecting him to push, because usually after, let's say, an example line, like bishop here, knight here, only when I put my knight on c6 does he provoke me by pushing forward, and my knight will end up rerouting onto the king side eventually after something like this and this. I throw my pawns at him. Very complex. That's the King's Indian that I'm used to. But he pushed right away. So this pretty much immediately told me that my opponent was not as theoretically deep in the nuances of the King's Indian. So knowing this gave me a slight confidence boost. I blitz out c6. Idea fairly simple. I want to chip away to center. Kind of the whole idea of the opening. Queen d2. Looking to trade bishops. I thought he wanted to castle queenside. Allegedly, he told me that he never actually was planning on castling queenside, which seemed very off to me. But whatever. I digress. I took in the center, and here was the hard part about, because I left theory in my brain about here, which is that I knew I wanted to take back, right? And I couldn't quite figure out what I'd do, because I was like, okay, well, if he takes with a pawn, maybe I can go here and here, or I can go knight a6 and here, but I didn't really have a super clear plan. So I was like, okay, if he takes the c pawn, I'll figure it out in the next move, because sometimes that's what you do in chess. You're like, okay, well, I know in this position there's clearly not an immediate loss of material, so there's no need for me to calculate some uber long line, and I'll probably just go here and I will be fine. I will have no problems. If you were to take with the e pawn, this is clearly a bit worse. It gives me a big hole here, and I was honestly planning to just straight up go a5 with the idea of putting my knight here. It gives his knight a perpetual square here, but I thought that after knight here, for example, knight here, I thought I was gonna be quite fine planning my knight here, and even if bishop takes, pawn takes, I'm sure he has a passed pawn, but I'm sure I could probably neutralize this. And what does the computer say? Yeah, no, computer straight up calls it a draw. So well, what do you know? My calculation is pretty much on point. So this is all what I'm thinking in my head, right before I take. So I take, and he took back the knight, and I was like, okay, now what? Because same conundrum. Well, I'm gonna take back. Why? Because I was like, okay, well, what else was I calculating? Well, if let's say I go knight here, I was scared of castles, and something like takes and queen takes, and suddenly I could not figure out how to guard this pawn. What does the engine have to say? Engine says that allegedly I'm winning after knight d4. What if bishop takes? Oh. Then queen e6, maybe bishop e6, queen moves, and then I just go here. Well, I didn't calculate that, but in my head, I thought that my d6 pawn was going to become very weak at some point. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna make you make all the big decisions right now because I'm not really in the mood to. Again, I'm facing a strong opponent. He took back the queen, and here I was like, okay, now what? And I actually came up with a very creative move here, which is I'm scared of him castling queen side, and so I checked him here. And this is a very interesting idea. So the computer actually wanted me to go bishop h6. So after the bishop takes, check, and then I win it. So same idea. Regardless, though, I check. If he pushes the g pawn, I just go back here. But suddenly, his pawns are really stupid. And I didn't really see many prospects of easy development for him. And more specifically, after the bishop blocks, I go back to h6, and suddenly I'm cutting off the king from castling. And I'm actually setting up a dangerous trap, which he falls for. So the computer gives this a mistake, but I actually am going to give this move a blunder. Because you got to understand, this d6 pawn, this is a poisoned pawn. What we call in chess at like my level, most levels, a poison pawn. A poison pawn, traditionally, it's the b7 or b2 square. It's a free pawn, but their queen takes, and I go knight c6. There's a lot of problems, and I mean a lot, because suddenly, do you see what my threat is? Let's say if he goes knight here, I go rook here, and I'm threatening straight up checkmate. It's a skewer. And look, the queen can't even block to guard the square. So he loses the queen on the spot if he plays something normal. And I calculated that after knight here, I can just do the same. Queen takes, takes, bishop here. And, I was initially scared of this move, but then I just realized I had a fork, funnily enough. So I was calculating this all through right when I went knight c6. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't he just lost? And he spent 26 minutes in this position going back. Offered queen trade. Logically, my queen's here. His queen's right here. Let's take. King takes. I check him in the center. And again, look at his kingside pieces. First look at my pieces. He moves. Now he's taking like 20 minutes on every move. So I develop a bishop. Want to put some pressure on the pawn. And I'm asking the question, how are you going to develop? Well, he starts with bishop d3. And I actually play a very creative move here, one that I'm proud of. I spend about 15 minutes, and then I go bishop f8. The computer wants me to sack a pawn, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to cut the king off. I'm going to put a piece here, maybe here, and it's going to get very dangerous. So he stopped me from going there, and I go, okay. Well, I only spent a few minutes here, and I go knight a5. I say, you know what? I'm going to put pressure here, here, and my idea is very clear. We're going for your king. So I'm the one asking the questions now, because, again, his pieces are tied down to the king side, and even though he's up a pawn, I have a significant positional advantage here. And actually, if you want to know what's so funny, is that he can't even guard the pawn, because I just take. And then after someone like king takes, we just take the bishop with check. We're taking this. It's over. So you can see he's clearly very uncomfortable. He develops a knight, and I go, okay, well, we're going to follow the logical plan, right? I blitz out this move. Literally, I spend... So he plays the move after a while, hits his clock. I walk over, write down his move. I go rook ac8, hit the clock, and I walk away. Because I just knew. Like, I was so confident about this move. And yeah, no, I'm straight up giving him another pawn. But obviously you can't take that one because your king is getting swarmed by 5, 10, 13, 16, 19 points of material with a solid 3, maybe 4 guarding. So it's bad. He moves his king, and his idea here was that he is now he's very close to just getting to safety, right? He's very close to getting to safety. And I come to a very profound realization here. I go, wait a minute. So my style of chess is more or less win fast. And I'm like, well, he's very close to leaving the pressure. And then I'll just be a pawn down, maybe even 2 pawns down. So I'm like, wait a minute. Can I just like sack a rook in a classical game of chess? And it completely works because I was like, wait a minute. So if he takes, I'm going to take here, skewer this. So he takes. I take here, and I'm like, if he goes here, I'm just going to check, win the bishop. I'm coming into here, so if he moves back, I'm going to win this. I'm attacking this. A rook, a piece, everything's swarming. He's just lost. He moves back to here. I collect a knight with check. Very important detail. He moves back. He's safe now. But suddenly I realize, wait a minute, he's safe, but what if I just like go after his rook? And he thought for about 6 minutes here, played the move, and he saw no problem with it. He goes, oh, I'm getting my rook out of danger. Well, checkmate. Criss cross applesauce checkmate. That was awesome. That was a cool feeling. Beating an 1800, my best win ever until we'll get, later, I won't spoil anything. You'll just have to stick around for the recaps. But this was just mind-blowing for me. Like, this gave me the biggest confidence boost I needed. Going in as the 38th out of 39 players and just beating an 1800. And not just beating him, but, as we'll see, pretty handily, too. Pretty damn handily. 98.2 accuracy. That is very, very good play. Yeah, no, final thoughts on the game. I guess it's just put on a lot of pressure, right? As we can clearly see, my ideas followed bringing the king out, pointing my pieces towards the king, and then just winning. I mean, it's not too crazy, in my opinion. So, yeah. All right. See you tomorrow.